Diffusion, the international science radio show.
Hello and welcome to Diffusion. I'm Ian Woolf. On this edition, Ivey talks about AI for kids. This episode is sponsored by the AI for Kids podcast, so this is a word with our sponsor. AI technology is expanding in use throughout our society, so children need to understand it.
Hi, my name is Ivey, and I am the founder of a company called AI Digitales, and we're an edutainment company that helps kids understand AI. So simply put, we're an AI for Kids company. Nice to meet you and happy to be here.
So Amber, how did you get interested in artificial intelligence?
Well, actually started at birth. No, I'm joking. My initials are AI, which is cool. My parents got something right. But my background is actually in data. So one of the things that's very important in the conversation with artificial intelligence is this idea of data. Data is what artificial intelligence is trained on, whether it's words, images, all different types of things. So as I was working in data, I kept learning about things like predictive analytics, natural language processing, which are just big words that say parts of AI. And I wanted to learn more about this. And I started seeing really interesting things. So I was like, let me do some research here. I'd already done data research already. So I started doing research in AI and trying to understand it. And then I was like, I want to share this with everyone. So I actually started talking about it with adults to say, hey, this is something that's coming very soon. Let's think about it. Fast forward, my voice is actually trained on an AI. There's an AI avatar that's out there. She travels the world. She uses my voice. She speaks in multiple languages. And I've just really gotten fully into this and fully immersed into the world of AI.
And how do you get the basic ideas of AI across to people?
So one thing that has happened just because of my job, I worked a lot with political figures and folks who are elected. So when you're working with elected officials and helping them understand what's in the data, you can't talk about numbers or all the complex things. So naturally, I've been able to break topics down in a way that anyone can understand. So because of that, I have just a knack for how I explain these often complex technologies. And it's always been my goal to explain it to a person like I would a 5-year-old, depending on the audience, or an 8th grader, just based on like average reading levels and things like that. So I always take that into mind when we're talking about some of these complex topics. I want people not to be afraid of it. I want people to say, oh, I get it. AI has been around for a very long time. I interviewed a gentleman one time who said it's old enough to be on Social Security here in the US. So with that being said, it's something that's been around and in our technologies, but now we're seeing it even more. So I make people understand that it's not new. It's easy to understand if we talk about it in a way that you can relate to.
And is that how you came to not just explaining things as if to small children, but actually explaining it to kids?
So the interesting thing was with my interviews for adults or doing research with different individuals, I would always ask, how would you explain this to a 5-year-old? And that was a part of me helping adults understand, because even adults didn't understand this complex topic. So when OpenAI released its model, I saw everyone around me just being so afraid and a little bit scared of this thing. I had interacted with it before because my voice is trained on a model that used ChatGPT before it came out to the masses. So I already knew some of its capabilities. It wasn't as scary to me. So I'm like, oh my gosh, everyone is scared. Everyone's flipping out. Some people are embracing it. Others are like banning it. And I'm like, we can't ban it because it's already here. It's been here for decades. How do we make sure our kids are ready to be in a world where this is their every day? Kids are already asking Siri for the weather or Google for the weather and all these different apps. They're already in apps that are using AI. They're watching TV and YouTube that let them know where they should go next. Like there are literally AI and algorithms and things attached to AI all around us. So because of that, and I have 2 nieces and at the time a nephew that was going to be born, I was like, I have to make sure they have something to know that this is not as scary. And that's when I launched my first book and created AI Digitales, which is an AI for Kids company. And the first book was called AI Meets AI, play on the words because I'm also an AI, right? And AI, the human girl, she meets a lost robot in the city of Baltimore. GPS is broken, and she helps it find its way back to a lab at Johns Hopkins University. So it's a playful story that really combines technology and humans together in a way that lets helps kids see themselves with something they understand, which is robots and toys in their mind, right? And be able to see how these things should work together, and the creativity, the humanity, and emotions. I really wanted them to also remain kids.
Do you think the kids think the AIs are really people, really alive?
I don't think so yet. I think they know it's a machine because most kids, like even my nieces and nephew, not the nephew because he's too young, but the nieces, they talk with these things. I think they understand it's a tool that they can use and it's something that helps them. I don't think they think it's alive. I think even with their robots, that's why one thing we talk about with Jazz, which is our robot AI, we say it's not a toy, as a robot, to remind them that it's its own thing, to differentiate. Because right now they're thinking, oh, it's a toy, something that's fun, but not really getting that this is actually an AI or some type of machine that's helping them. So I don't think they think it's human just yet.
I think that's probably a good thing. And kids are very perceptive that way after a little conversation, I think.
Oh, yeah. And because of the limitations of the current ones that are in the home, like it quickly says, and the voices sounds a little bit robotic to help you also have that connection where it's like, oh, I don't know. I don't have access to that. Kids know a human would know and would have access. When we get into more of like the GPTs and other systems, llamas and all these other AI systems in the world, those are a little bit closer. And even with the AI avatars that's trained on my voice, it sounds like you're talking to me. Like you wouldn't be able to know if it wasn't me or not, which is also scary. But the benefit of that and why I did it was to help kids not be afraid of it. Because originally, when its voice talked to me, it was very robotic. And I was like, oh, like I thought Terminator, or for folks who haven't seen that show, it's basically an AI that takes over the world, right? And we don't want that. So I wanted to lend my voice or license my voice so that it can have a calm voice. I believe in the mission is all about education, is not any nefarious mission. So I really wanted it to have a kind voice that felt like a human and that folks could say, oh, this is cool. Let me interact with it. I actually just took, her name is Clara. I took her on the road with me. I had a speaking gig in front of a group of educators and they were able to talk to her. They were able to ask it questions and she live answered questions. Why does that matter? Because this is a way for you to think about education in a different way, think about how we learn in a different way. There's so many things that we can do with these new technologies.
It's amazing. Like using your own voice that
Mhm.
way is really interesting. It's one of the things I tried to do when the technologies became available was to clone my own voice. And then I was stuck with what do I do with it?
You can do that. You can create your own AI avatar. That's going to be a thing in the future. People are already doing it. You already clone your voice. People are
Mm.
cloning their images and being able to put them into like the metaverse. So imagine a world where people are more in things like the metaverse. Like it got a little bit of an uptick and then everyone kind of like chilled out on it for a bit, but that's not going anywhere. For this next generation, they're already in Roblox, Minecraft. They're already in these metaverse worlds, Decentraland, all these metaverse worlds. Imagine if they could bring their character in it in a way that is more representative of them, where they may not want to talk to someone that day. And they're like, here, let my character talk to people and interact. I'm not having a good day. I don't want to talk about this or what have you, but they want to play a game. So it allows you to use it in different ways. Or the voice that gets sent out for me, she educates people, mostly built around education, helping people learn and think about ways to just improve education. So you can literally make it for anything and it can be focused on a topic area that's important to you, whether it's science or any other topic.
And which AI tools do you find the kids enjoy playing with the most?
So a lot of kids haven't played with the tools in particular. Some parents are letting their kids use things like ChatGPT because it's a web app, free and things like that. But most interactions kids have had with AI at this point has been through apps. So it's more passive, it's not as active. And one thing I always tell people, especially when they're starting their kids out, depending on age, they should be doing it with their kid because it's still not new in that way, but these chatbots are newer and they still have bugs, they still have issues. So we need to make sure our kids are interacting with them in a way they understand. And I often recommend, especially depending on age, that parents do it with them. A lot of parents haven't tried it yet. So I always tell them, just try it together and see what it is that is happening here. So then you can go forward after that.
I think it's so important to have the parents involved. I've read
Yes.
stories online of kids getting used to using, say, Alexa and just
Mm.
ordering stuff. And then
Yeah.
they think they can just order adults around the same way because they don't have to be polite to Alexa.
So
So
true. Very true. But that's the piece around what you said. Parents have to be involved. I always tell people that just because technology has come on top of our human interface, that doesn't mean we forget the things that make us human, right? We should be polite. You should also be polite to the AI you're talking to, right? You should don't open doors to strangers. So that means you don't go to websites you don't know, or you don't talk to people you don't know. Like there are things in everyday life that we teach kids and that are very important, just being a human and navigating this world. We want to make sure that they come into the technology world and those concepts and things have to continue. We can't create these things as two different things. The human piece has to remain. It's just a new tool we're using to ensure that we're able to have better lives as humans.
Absolutely. And I think it's good practice for adults to be
Yes.
polite because otherwise you'll get out of the habit when you're facing real people.
Oh, yeah, I definitely agree.
And it's interesting, these concepts for young kids, because as you say, they're going to be using phones, and every phone manufacturer is putting AI into phones this year.
Mm-hmm.
And so, how do you get across sort of basic ideas of what models can and can't do, and even what a model is?
So one of the things I try to break down, even in our new podcast, we actually released a podcast to do that. It's called AI for Kids. And one of the things we do in the podcast is break these things down at the binary or bite-sized levels. What we call bite by bite is our or bit by bit. Either one is the way we think about these things. So what we do is we talk about complex topics and we break it down in a way they can understand. So as it relates to models, we bring on people who are either working in these things. Like one of our interviews was a young girl she's built two AI companies at this point. One, and she's a teenager. She started coding when she was sixth grade. So she's a teenager, has two companies. One is an app that allows you to do public speaking and to get correction and help you improve. So you can literally do your public speaking, record yourself, and the AI analyzes, and then you keep doing, and it helps you to better improve for if you're speaking. The other thing she launched was a pill tracker for her grandfather. So her father and grandfather had to take medicine, but her grandfather had an illness where he couldn't skip his medicine. So she created an AI app that would dispense medicine based on when he needed and help to alert him through an app so that he wouldn't forget that, hey, I need to take my medicine. So even those cool things are happening. But the way that I explain things like models is that these right now, particularly in large language models and what we see in the chatbots, these little bots are here. We actually did an episode about this. B is for bot. These bots are here to help you to navigate and make life a little bit easier. So if you have a question or a problem, you can almost use them like a friend or an assistant to help you understand a question or problem you may have. But no matter what the friend or assistant says, you always need to check if it's right. You always need to make sure you edit it to have exactly what you need in it. And you shouldn't take what the friend or assistant says as the full truth without doing your research. Just like you would when you're writing a story or looking up things, you're going to look for multiple sources to make sure what you're saying is true. So they're little assistants that help our lives be better. And depending on the model or depending on the chatbot, they're going to be stronger in some areas and weaker in other areas. Just like we as humans have our strengths and weaknesses, you want to pick the model based on what you need and what type of help you need.
And so you're interviewing people as part of these lessons on the podcast.
Oh, yeah. So we interview experts who are either working in AI and who have been doing it for a while, or even teenage entrepreneurs who are either launching AI tech, which is crazy to me. I'm like, it blew my mind that kids are already out here doing some of this work. But again, it's been around for a while. So some kids have been using it in different ways. And we also do we do 2 episodes every 2 weeks. One episode is shorter, so like less than 7 minutes for younger kids. And we just break down a topic in a way that's fun. We attach an activity to it that they can do without a computer. So the other thing we want people to learn is that I'm not trying to teach you AI in particular. I'm trying to teach you problem solving, logic, some of the things that I know growing up I got in school that helped me be able to have the brain power and the muscle memory to understand how to use things like data and understand things like AI. And then we have a longer episode that includes an interview. And that one is with an industry expert or a teen or a kid who's doing some of this work. And that's more so just explaining how they're interacting in this world, also breaking down tough topics so that folks can see themselves potentially in these careers. Because I want them to move beyond saying, hey, Siri, hey, Google, and asking for help and just being users of it. I want them to transition at some point to creators, or at least understand how their future career field will have AI a part of it and how they are going to use it and interact with that technology.
And as well as the podcast, you've got a YouTube channel.
Yes. So we have an AI Digitales YouTube channel, which also uploads the video version of the podcast. And the hope is in the future that we take some of our books and things like that and make into animation, as well as little interactive educational clips. Like, it's fully about edutainment. So I want kids to be educated while also having fun and being entertained. They love jazz. They love Addie Iris, which is a little girl in the book, and her little brother, Nolan. We're also introducing new characters this September with our new book. So the goal is to keep adding kids, characters, and people to this AI Digitales universe so they can understand it and see it in a way that's not so threatening or scary. That is just part of the life that they are already in. And for adults, like, it's scary to us because we didn't grow up with that. Like, when the internet came out the first time, we were nervous about that. When other things came out, we got nervous about that. That just happens, right? These kids are already born into it and are interacting with AI way more than we ever have. So why not make it a place where they can learn and also have fun?
It sounds so important because these, as you say, it's not just about learning about the current technology, but it's technology that's been around for a while, and it's logical thinking principles that you're trying to get across.
Correct. That's very important to me because I remember when I was a kid, one of my favorite activities that the teacher, I can't remember which teacher at the time, but I know it showed up in a few classes, would give me logic games. And it was like those games where you literally have what looks like boxes and things like that. And there were clues, and you had to figure out who was doing what within due to these clues. And it helped you to think in a new way. So it's important for me to help kids think in a new way and to hear new concepts, to learn new things. Someone I know was listening to one of our podcasts, and we had an episode called A is for Algorithm. The little girl is 5. She listened to it and they did a video and sent it over to me. And she said the word algorithm. Like, she's like, I learned about algorithms. I'm pretty sure she didn't learn about algorithms, right? I'm pretty sure she didn't learn everything, right? My goal is not for them to come away as expert. It's for that little girl who listened to this fun podcast with music in the background, picked up one word, and then later on, she may pick up something somewhere else. And then later on, she may pick up something somewhere else, where then it starts to work together. As a kid, when I was doing logic games, I thought I was just playing a game that I enjoyed. I didn't realize it was helping me solve problems and going to be a big part of the skills I needed as an adult. And we know as kids develop, the brain is developed substantially by the time they're 5. But one thing that scientists have also found is that mastery happens like within that middle age range. So a kid who may have learned to code, like the 6th grader I was talking about, who learned to code at 6th grade, who learned to code at 6th grade and maybe codes for 10 years at 6th grade, is better off than the 20-year-old who codes for 20 years because of just when that activity happened and how the brain works and functions. So it's important for me to help kids get access to these skill sets in a way that helps to build their brain so that when they get to the point of choosing career, or even high school, when they're thinking more about those things, or even middle school for some kids, when they're thinking about these things, they're like, oh, this is like this. Like, one thing I don't necessarily like about the US education system here is that we often don't tell people the why. We'll teach folks all these different skills, and then you got to kind of figure it out later on. I remember being in my master's program, and I had taken, now I'm forgetting which math it was. I forgot. It's a certain type of math, and I literally forgot it. Starts with a D, and I cannot remember. But I had taken differential equations. I'd taken differential equations when I was in high school. I was really good at math. And when I got to college and was in a stats class, then I finally understood what it was for. And I'm like, between 12th grade and I got my master's at 28. No, I got my master's at 30, went back at 28. So from 12th grade to 28, I didn't know why that type of math was useful. And then I was able to understand how it can be used to understand populations and different things like that. I think sometimes it's helpful to let kids know the how and the why and the what, and not just this is what we're learning, but to explain how it can be used in real life. And that's why at AI for Kids, we explain literally how coding is used right now, we compare, like, for example, we launched an episode that says C is for coding. We're doing the ABCs of AI right now. And one of the things we said in the C is for coding, imagine if you had a map that was drawn and you didn't have the necessary things you needed to get to where you need to go, to explain to kids that coding is directions for the technology to move into. So we try to apply it to real world things in a way that a kid can say, oh, that's how I could think about coding, or oh, I can use coding to build this or that. Not that this is this AI thing over here in a box and it's scary, but what does it really do? How are we already using it? How does it compare to my everyday life that's outside of a computer? I'm very big about let kids be kids, but not robots, but at the same time, ensuring they are prepared and have the tools they need and can interact and function with these technologies.
And you have some workshops as well?
Yes. So we do an AI for Kids one-on-one workshop. So for parents and kids and parents, even parents can learn from that. So we have AI workshops that we offer to schools. We're probably going to open it up in the future for other folks to come in, like just kids and parents who aren't attached to a school, to let them come in and learn. But what they learn there is the basics of technology and AI in a way that's fun. And we do a bit of computer activities, but also we pull it off the screen. So the kids, while they're in a virtual environment, can also do a robot or AI-like activity in their home. So it involves writing a code where they're dancing, jumping around, and having to share with their families how to do it. So we try to mix both worlds because I am a big advocate of creativity, and kids are probably the purest form of creativity. As we get older, we just shut it down, or the society we're around tells us no enough where we shut it down. I want kids to keep that because we need creative kids to be able to interact with the AI driven world. We also have a workbook that we release alongside our first workbook that introduces kids, again, younger age 4 to 8, to early concepts of AI. It's also a coloring book. So it's a coloring and AI workbook because, again, it's so important for me that creativity and tech remain together, because tech is all things creative. We often feel like it's robotic because of the way it's structured and the way we think about it. But the fact that when we were born, these things didn't exist, and I had to literally fly to Sydney to see you. The fact that you and I can talk real time, thousands of miles away, is creative. And I want people to remember that the whole aspect behind this is creativity, and we need kids to remain creative so they can think about the future of what these technologies become and the future beyond that.
And of course, there's been issues in the news about restricting kids' access to phones, which would restrict their access to AI. What do you think?
So it depends. So there are phones, there are phones that parents can give their kids that have limited access and can only call a few numbers. So there are phones that are closed basically, and a parent can literally give it to their kid through like a smart walkie-talkie type thing or a phone, and literally the kid can only call emergency numbers and a few friends. Depending on the age, I get it. I don't want my kid to have access to the full world. Just like anything else, I just interviewed someone and they were like, you wouldn't hand a kid a fork as a baby. So you don't want to hand them the fork of technology as a baby. You introduce them to milk first, then they go to mushy food, then they go to a form of solid foods. So I would do the same thing with technology. We want to introduce our kids in a way that is helpful so that they can be prepared, but there's so many tools and technologies that allow you to lock it down so that you don't have access beyond that. There are articles I read recently because I was a little nervous about if a kid doesn't have access to phones and things like that, will they be able to assimilate into technology or into the world, or will they be drastically held back? There are kids now who are coming out of the Gen Z and Gen A era who are graduating from high school or who are around that teenage mark where they never received a phone. One girl I was reading about, I think she was valedictorian and voted most liked in her class. She never had a phone. And people often think that, oh, you need the phone because that's how everyone's communicating. Because she didn't have the phone, I imagine that made her have to use her skills differently when she was at school, and to bring out her personality and just also do something we haven't done in a while, which is lift our heads up away from these things and talk to a human. So I think that if you introduce your kid later, it's also okay. They have interaction with computers and things like that, and there's safe spaces to put them. I know parents who also only allow their kids to do it on the weekends. So I think you can limit it. The thing that I am not for is parents saying no to everything, because I do think that hinders your kids. I think time and place, think of it like a fork. How do you literally, or baby food or wherever it is, the other analogy, how do you literally take your child from the beginning steps and produce or walk with them? And the thing is, a lot of parents don't understand this either. So you can also take it in the same way and you both can learn together. And the cool thing is, if you go on one of those websites and ask, how do I introduce my 2-year-old, 3-year-old, 4-year-old, fill in the blank age to AI, the AI can actually help you figure out a way that's healthier, safe to do. And then you as a parent, check it out. Look again to see what's happening in the regular environment. There are also digital parenting groups on Facebook and things like that, where people are literally asking these questions and they're trying to navigate this world. But I am anti-banning it, but I am here for guardrails and protections for kids to play with it, and for parents to give kids activities to go a little bit outside of that. Like, have your kid use the AI and say, hey, I want you to create our vacation for the next summer. I want you to create a new recipe and I want you to use AI to do it, so that it doesn't limit their creativity, but they can see some of the bounds of it. I think there's ways to introduce it in a safe and healthy way.
And what about kids cheating with AI?
Kids have been cheating and adults have been cheating since the beginning of time. So I do want to remind folks of that. One thing that often happens with technology is like we get an added sense of there's going to be bad things that happen more. No, we have a level of there's bad that just happens in our society, which is horrible. We should reduce that. But the thing I encourage teachers to do and parents to do is actually show kids how to learn with it and how to make their writing better. So if you tell a kid, hey, I need you to write your first draft and I need you to send it to me. Your second draft, you're going to work back and forth and you're going to create prompts, which are basically questions or words that are said to the chatbot in order to elicit a response. You're going to create prompts that helps you improve. And I want you to write down your prompts and share those with me. And then I want to see what the technology said and how you improve the paper. That's very different than cheating, right? That teaches a kid how to use these technologies in a way that's helpful. And even an added layer of that, how can I improve my writing based on what you just said? And where are areas that I need support? Is it grammar? Am I having issues with different pieces of writing? Like, how can I actually get better? Imagine a world where a teacher did that. I take away cheating. Like, you're actually helping me get better, because the thing that I think is important is that we don't have enough teachers per student. Like, there's a world where 1-for-1 would be great. Like, we know that when kids get one-on-one work and are able to also work in groups, they just do better. So if you know you have one teacher per 26 kids, the teacher cannot give each kid the same level of support and help. So why not use the chatbot or these technologies to help the kid improve, but then show their work? So to me, the future of AI in education is show your work. We had to show our work with math. We had calculators to cheat, right? We had TI-83s to cheat, but we showed our work and showed how we got there. And then that was the ability to show that we had learned something. So I do want to say that. The other piece is that a lot of the AI tools that are supposedly able to track itself are not working. OpenAI had one, and they literally took it down because they're like, we don't know if this works. And it was actually saying that kids were cheating, or people or adults were writing things that they hadn't written, which is a problem, because now we're false flagging people who were not cheating or doing wrong. They were just great writers and wrote more logical. So it's something that we need to think about when we think about those things. But we can use AI to help with that. And we should give kids access in a way that allows them to show their work.
I think that there's a lot of important things there. I think you're absolutely right. Showing your work, and also what you were saying earlier about explaining why you're learning to do something. But students who cheat at, say, essays tend to think the essay is the output and what the teacher
Right.
wants, whereas the thinking that goes into the essay, learning to think as you write, is the actual result. And you don't get that if you get an AI to do it for you badly.
Oh, yeah, totally right. And I think that's where the teachers have to come into play and say, hey, again, let's explain this. Like, it's so easy for you to use AI to write. And at the age I am, this is a teacher speaking, I use AI because I know how to write. I've learned the concepts and things that go behind it, but you're still learning. So let's use AI to work together. So today I'm teaching this creative writing, and I want you all to figure out how to be creative, but I want it to start with you. Now I want you to take it to the AI tool because you may have issues with grammar or things like that. I want you to go into the AI tool and only ask it to help you with grammar, not to change your writing, but to help you identify your grammatical errors, highlight my grammatical errors, and then I want you to show the highlights, and then I want you to fix it. That's an easy way to put those things in place where the kid still does the creative writing. The teacher doesn't have time necessarily to correct all their errors. Or I know back in the day for me, we would pass our paper to someone else and they would correct it. But then use it even beyond that to say, okay, why did I get this wrong? Why is this a grammatical error? Can you explain to me why? The tool can literally do that. So imagine a kid who's going through that process. I know sites beforehand like Grammarly were being used, but at the free version, it would just tell you you had errors, which was really cool because then you would have to go fix it until you got it right. And what it was missing was the why, right? So if you can pull all those things together, here's what I want you to do, this is why, and this is how you fix it. I think that's where we have the true power of these technologies. And if any kids are listening, and I know you are, please do not copy and paste from these tools. Everyone knows, it's easy to tell. And I know y'all don't think they know. Your writing doesn't change drastically that quick overnight, but there are ways to use it to enhance yourself if your parents and teachers are allowing you to use it.
Yes. And if there's teachers watching, don't assume an AI can detect AI copied writing. Sometimes the students really can write.
Yes, agree 100%. Too many errors there. And if the leader in it, and that's OpenAI, pulled down their model that was detecting, let's go ahead and just not assume that some company that created the model based off of OpenAI's model is able to do it. So yes, let's not assume, let's ask, again, show your work. First draft, they should have first draft, second drafts, final drafts. They should be able to see that they've been able to build and write that on their own.
So if people want to listen to the podcast and check out the YouTube channel, where do they go?
So our podcast is called AI for Kids. So simple. And we're on all major podcast platforms from Apple to Spotify. Google no longer exists, but Amazon Music and all those other different places. So check us out. And then anything related to our books or edutainment and our YouTube is on the handle AI Digitales, which is AIDIGITALES. It was a play on digital. So it's AI Digitales because we're doing both education around technology and storytelling.
Is there anything I haven't asked you you'd like to raise or talk about?
I think the only thing I want to leave the audience with is I believe AI has the ability to either take over the world, as people say. I think we're nowhere near that. Like we're nowhere near AGI right now, but that could change in 1 to 5 years or more. But AGI is like the so-called technology is able to think for itself and has emotions like a human. We're not there yet. We're still at like natural language processing, large language models, machine learning, and these things have been in our society and interacting with us for some time. So I want to remind people that this has an ability to close so many gaps. One of the things I heard from a doctor at Johns Hopkins is that he wished that we would have one AI teacher to go along with every student to work with a human teacher. So imagine that class I mentioned earlier of one teacher to 26 students. Imagine if 26 students also had an AI tutor or AI assistant that work with the teacher. Because here, at least in the US context, and I think a lot of places, we focus on the middle of the class. And we don't focus on the beginning, or the folks who are ahead, and we don't focus on those who are behind because the teacher doesn't have enough time. So you focus on the middle to try to move the middle as far as you can. Imagine a world where each child has access to an AI tutor or a system that allows them to see what's happening in their own education journeys. They may not be ready for math today. They may need to go back to English in their lesson today. So instead of like giving this one size fit all education, which teachers have wanted to get away from, why we have small classroom sizes to help with some of that, or we have human teacher assistants. I know some classes in DC and Washington, DC, where I live near, they have 3 teachers in a room to get some of this like different learning styles and things like that. But imagine if that tool was able to say, hey, this is what you need today. This is where I need to support you. And we also have schools who are doing that in certain places. In Austin, Texas here, they're doing that. And then imagine it telling the teacher, hey, Jonathan or Jane is having issues in math. I need you to spend an extra time with them, like to alert the human what student needs extra help versus just seeing a test or analyzing how someone's raising your hand or interacting in the classroom. Imagine if you had that real-time feedback. So you as a teacher are better informed, better know how you can help your kids. And the lessons are still you. It's not the machine. Like you're doing the lessons and it's just working with you to help ensure your kids are able to get to where they are. So I say that because I think AI has a big ability to close gaps. We've seen it in areas around health, education, like it's been able to identify different diseases in people that they've never seen. I know now people even drop their blood results in those tools to identify what's happening with their body. Like a lot of stuff is happening, whereas a lot of our systems are overworked and don't have the human support we need. This almost feels like the right time to figure out how we work with these AI tools. Again, as a tool, don't think of the AGI, the Terminator version. Think of it as a new tool. We're all not still writing or using an abacus or writing full form math. We're using calculators. We're all not going to a payphone to call someone. We have a smartphone in our pocket. We have a computer in our pocket, right? We have technology. They say there's more technology in this thing than what has gotten to the moon and things like that. So if we have all these new ways and tools to help us do better and to help us just be better and close gaps and make sure that we continue to progress in society, let's use them. Please don't ban them without understanding. And let's keep and remain creative because that's more important than anything else. And if AI is going to harm, of course, we're going to stop and not do it. But first and foremost, stay creative, stay human so we can be better partners with these tools like AI.
Fantastic. Well, Amber, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Diffusion, the International Science Radio Show.
study science, because you will find in the study of science a richer, more rewarding life.